I've wanted to start this series for a while. We watch a lot of current college football recruits, and it's a lot of fun, but it's also important to go backwards and watch some of the best college football players ever and ask ourselves, if this kid was coming out of high school right now, how do we treat him as a recruit? You know, how did he get better? How did he kind of take those steps to being one of the best players in the country? When we do this, I think it's a bit easier to first evaluate these players in high school and ask ourselves, how good is this kid? And then, maybe he's not so good at this, but this is something that we've seen kids improve on a lot throughout their college football careers. So you guys let me know if there's any other players you want me to watch, going backwards and watch them, or if there's any other recommendations to the format of this video. We're kicking this series off with Jameis Winston. I've already established part of these videos are going to be to inform, but they're also going to be to entertain. It's a lot of fun watching these kids in high school, and I think Jameis Winston's one of the most entertaining college football quarterbacks of all time. So we're going to take a look at the 2012 quarterback right now from Hueytown, Alabama. 6'4", 230. That's the first thing we always talk about these recruits now when they're in high school, the frame. 6'4", 230. Jameis Winston's not going to be the most athletic quarterback in the 2012 class, but his frame kind of helps him make up for that lack of athleticism. Certainly athletic enough, moves very well, I think, for carrying 230 pounds, but you'll see. Also, just a real intense presence he brings to the football field. I can already tell you that the high school coach here is telling Jameis, just carry this fake out. Watch him become the lead blocker on this play here. Absolutely levels this first kid and then throws a shoulder on the next one, man. Very, very physical presence he brings to the quarterback room at 6'4", 230, and the mentality also. We don't talk about this a lot for quarterbacks. We talk about love for the game, but how many quarterbacks you see here become the lead blocker on the first play of the highlight tape? Here he is on defense. Okay, that's nice. Like that for sure. How does he look on the defensive side of the ball? Here he is on a cat blitz. Another one absolutely levels this quarterback here. So, again, we're going to talk about Jameis Winston not being the fastest quarterback in this class, in this 2012 class, but at 6'4", 230, he doesn't have to run away from as many players when he's in the pocket, doesn't have to avoid the blitz as much just because he can kind of withstand it at that frame. At high school, you're going to see him run around a lot of kids, not something that's going to really translate to the next level at college. At Florida State, we did see him have some wiggle to him. You remember that one Oklahoma State run where he jumped over the dude and then kind of did a back juke. We're not going to rely on that from Jameis Winston, but in terms of intensity, in terms of physical presence, he's kind of a one of one at the quarterback position for sure. Also a baseball recruit. So you'll see on some of these throws, he certainly has a really good arm. Definitely puts something on some of these deep throws here that we'll get into. Just a very easy arm. Look at this is 35, 40 yards by the time it hits the guy. Ugh. It's him on defense again. Just a love for the game. Sees the bubble screen and just lights this kid up. Shit, he can punt too. This is him punting. So we've already seen him be a good quarterback, be pretty good with the ball in his hands, be a good corner. Look at this punt. 2 yards, Beautiful. Here's another one. Most quarterbacks, they just throw this tunnel screen or this stop screen or whatever, and they're just done with the play. Look at him. He actually sets the block here that gets this kid in the end zone. So just a real love for the game with Jameis Winston. So we really like the frame. We really like the intensity he brings. How is he as a thrower? We're gonna have to see some more throwing in this high school tape before we're convinced of ourselves as a college football recruit. We like the arm, right? I think the arm's certainly good enough at this point. Man, look at this throw. Remember we saw Joe Burrow do this in warm-ups not too long ago? This is in full pads here. Look at him just turn around, doesn't even look where the ball goes. Hits this kid top shelf. Oh my gosh. And these kids just cannot get a hand on him. And then when they do, they can't bring him down. I don't think he gets touched this entire play here. I'm not trying to keep going back and forth on these plays, but we talk about a lot of these high school kids, not being great athletes at the quarterback position, but they'll be really efficient with their movements. This is a really good move by Jameis here. Not the fastest kid in the country, but just runs around everybody. And then when he doesn't run around people, he can just run through them. You really can't arm tackle him at the high school level. So, when we're watching these kids, this is kind of how you get away without being the best athlete in the country is, efficiency of movement. And then Jameis just has a gift from God being 6'4", 230 I think this is his senior year film in high school. That really makes him a really good pocket passer. Just the fact that he's very difficult to bring down, I think. Really easy arm downfield also. Hits this kid in stride. So I think at Florida State, this play here is what you kind of saw translate, right? These kids just not being able to bring him down because of how big he is. This is the kind of the stuff that you didn't really see as much, him making people miss in the open field. Wasn't as often, as he was just shaking off tackles. Really like that 6'4", 230 frame in high school. Here's another one. Just hits this kid on the back shoulder. This is a dot also. Man, god damn. Talk about contact balance. Not a track guy. Really good baseball player, just not a track athlete in a straight line, I don't think. That was a really fun highlight tape we just watched. If Jameis Winston was coming out of high school right now, I wouldn't just have QB listed. I'd say FB, just for football player. I mean, how many quarterbacks have you ever watched become a lead blocker on a run play, on a screen play, and then, actually take the defensive side of the ball seriously? We saw him just absolutely light up some kids on the defensive side. He even saw a pretty damn good punt out of Jameis Winston, so really saw everything. That highlight tape specifically didn't see too many passes, but, having the knowledge he was a 5-star quarterback, he threw for 3,000 yards as a senior, so already a pretty developed passer when he walked into Tallahassee. Credit to Jimbo Fisher for turning him into one of the best quarterbacks in college football history, but you can see this kid was a pretty damn good recruit coming out of high school as well. 6'4", 230, didn't have to be a great athlete just because of the physical presence that he brought to that quarterback spot. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think about Jameis Winston as a high school recruit, how you would have evaluated him. Any other players you want me to take a deeper look into in the 2012 class, in the 2013 class, whoever, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching.